So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, you may remember that I painted a couple of fantasy figures, Narg spirit hosts from Oakbound Studios for use in the game The Woods. And that was kind of a very small project, just to join in one of Oakbound Studios' lockdown challenges, just a weekly thing. But I quite enjoyed doing it. I've got a lot of unpainted figures, quite a few unpainted figures from Oakbound Studios for the game. So I thought I would try my hand at another group of figures, and what did I do? Of course, rather than dip into my lead mountain, I went and purchased some more. These are available at the moment on the website, but it says that they're not. They were due for release at Salute, and Jeff Solomon Sims hasn't been able to access the website to update it. There's some technical problems with it. So a lot of the stuff that says available soon on the website, if you just contact him, he can bill you through PayPal and then post them to you. But anyway, I really enjoyed painting these figures. I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a moment, but at the same point I do have quite a few reservations. So one of my biggest pleasures in doing them really was that it sort of rekindled my interest in fairies, because these are a group from the Fae, known as the Fae Rad, which is a kind of hunting party that has re-entered the mortal realm, and is a sort of pleasure-seeking group out hunting for exotic animals and so on, and having a good time, basically. Yeah, so as I say, it's kind of reignited my enthusiasm for all things fairy, and I was thinking about talking about that in depth, but it would kind of take me away from the sort of nub of this video. So I may well put up another video in the future talking about fairy traditions, and how our conception of what fairies are has changed over the years and so on. But yeah, as I say, that was one of my biggest kind of pleasures, was kind of immersing myself in all that. But at the same time, I do have some reservations, and I think my prime reservation really is that these figures aren't sculpted by Jeff Solomon Sims. They're actually sculpted, or mainly in the main, by a sculptor called Charlie Earle, and he originally sculpted them to be female pirates. Now, to me, that they are a little bit too heavily sexualized, and normally they're the kind of figures that I would stay clear of. In particular, the centre figure. Zoom in on the centre now, and so this figure in the centre with the yellow skirt on, is one of the two raid masters. But when you combine the kind of sort of erotic lingerie she's wearing and sporting and so on with the hunting kind of theme and the riding crop that she's carrying, it gives her a little bit too much of the appearance of a dominatrix or something like that. Now, in the rules, Jeff Solomon Sims does state that these fairies did dress provocatively, but I think there's a difference between that and dressing erotically. And you have to remember, this goes back to the original concept for these figures, is that they were originally sculpted and designed to be female pirates. So there's kind of no justification really in portraying females in that fashion in a historical context of, you know, sort of early 18th century piracy. It's the transfer across to this sort of fantasy realm that's kind of given it a kind of new license really to do that. So I would have preferred. They do approach my kind of visualization of what fairies should appear like, because I'm kind of heavily influenced by Susanna Clarke's novel, the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So they're kind of approaching that image that she describes and was portrayed by the illustrations in the book. I forget the name of the illustrator, and by the recent TV dramatisation. But they're just a little bit too, as I say, a little bit too heavily sexualised. Anyway, that aside, they've been great fun to paint. In particular, being able to kind of, just go overboard a little bit on colours and different painting techniques and so on. And maybe I ought to explain a little bit more about the Fae Rad in the rules. Basically, as I understand it, the way Jeff is sort of hoping to present them is that it's loosely based on the kind of legends and stories of from the Dark Ages of the kind of Roman appearance in the British Isles, and then they're sort of turning everything upside down for several hundred years. Bringing in a lot of new cultures and customs and then disappearing. So that's the way he's kind of sees the sort of effect of the fairy visitation on the mortal realm. I think it's called Tullum Ha. So he's given all he's given all the fairies a kind of Italianate sort of style. So what he's added to the Charlie Earl sculpts is to present the Fae Rad as a kind of Venetian characterization. So he's given them masks and so on, and I'm not quite sure what else. Presumably this one in the centre he has given the riding crop to, because I don't see how that would, have been appropriate for pirates. But there are the Fae Rad, who are the sort of pleasure-seeking hunting groups. There's the Fae Marshal, which he has sculpted himself, who are a kind of a bit like a sort of police force, really, who the fairy court have to send into the mortal realm to tidy up the mess that the Fae Rad are leaving behind them and sort them out. A bit like sort of police on a drunken Saturday night out in town. And then there are, what are they called? I think they're called Fay Walkers, who are kind of guardians of the portals by which you come and go into the mortal realm. And they are kind of solitary figures who have usually fallen out of favour at the court and been sent into a kind of exile. So they're the sort of three main groups, but this is the sort of hunting party group. So you have two figures that are raid masters, this being one of them, the other one being this lady here. Let's get these out of the way a little bit. Just concentrate on the centre of the image. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. Yeah, so she's the other one, and again, lots of kind of underwear on display and high sort of thigh length boots and so on. But you can see the kind of pirate, the residue of the sort of pirate theme going on there a little bit. This is another thing that I had my reservations about with these figures is that their weaponry is very suggestive to me of sort of cutlasses and claymores, heavy kind of unrefined sort of weapons, you know, that are just used for deckboard actions and close quarter fighting. So they're weapons that you would, you know, bring down on someone's head without a great deal of finesse. And again, that doesn't seem to sit comfortably with me with this sort of theme of a hunting party, or with the Venetian style. You know, if they were Venetians, they would surely have weapons like more suitable for fencing and elaborate kind of dueling styles. You know, things that you dispatched your victim with a thrust rather than with a blow. You know, so yeah, I don't know if they look quite right. They're not right for hunting, and that would have been another very apt weapon to give them, is because a lot of especially in the Anglo-Saxon period, fairies, as I say, there's a great deal of divergence in how fairies are thought of and so on, but elves in the Anglo-Saxon period were often considered to have to be invisible to the humans, but to be able to strike humans with darts and with arrows and things like that. Elf shot, so that you then that would explain why you got sudden pangs of pain, or strokes and things like that were often written off as being the result of elf shot. And surely bows and arrows and javelins and such like would have been much better for a hunting party. But I think that's the problem with incorporating another person's sculpts that were designed for another theme into this, is that it's meant that you really are tied to this kind of more kind of brutal kind of fighting weapon. But anyway, she is the other raid master. Then you have a single figure here, just one. who is the Gilari. See, this goes back to this Italian theme. A Gilari is the Italian for jester. Not Guillari, as it's spelt in quite a few pages of the book. There is the correct spelling of it in other pages, but also on the website it's got Guillari, but it's Gilari, a jester. So she is like an individual, she's got individual characteristics in the rules. Not so much kind of corsetry going on, although there is still, suggestion of lingerie and so on. She's carrying she's obviously tipsy, carrying a wine bottle or something like that. But yeah, nice. I enjoyed painting that figure. It's a nice figure. And then you've got what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 figures who are all Cacciatore, different numbers, but they're all basically Cacciatore, which is the Italian for a hunter or a chasseur. And you can see immediately heavy kind of claymore-like weapon sitting alongside dress that isn't really suitable for riding and hunting and so on. But that's the sort of strange business. Like some of them are more have more sort of 17th century styles about them. So this one I would suggest was, whereas some of the others with the tricorns and that look more 18th century to me, at least early 18th century. But this is another thing that I enjoyed about these figures is I especially with the ones that have got these kind of flowing dresses and so on, is the trying to make them look a little bit satiny and just sort of experiment with painting styles. I mean, this one in particular, another Cacciatore, that colour, it sort of reminds me a little bit of some of Van Dyck's paintings of the court of Charles I and so on. So sort of mid 17th century silks and satins, and there's also, but again, another one that's got a really huge sword. I mean, this is another thing about another criticism I would have really is that the metal is very fragile. There's one figure where the sword had snapped at the end. The end part of it just didn't exist, and just giving it a very treating it very gently and just to wash it in soap, it also then became detached at the hilt. So I had to kind of drill a hole into the hilt and push it into that, which lost me another millimetre maybe, securely attach it with super glue and milliput and so on, and then grind the end down to give it a kind of curved impression at the end. So it's got more of an appearance of a cutlass now than, I mean, it was almost certainly intended to be the same length as that. So the metal is very vulnerable to snapping and breaking and bending and so on. Painted that one with a few, I took that idea from the website and the way the figures are painted on the website was sort of Harlequin type styles and so on. So apart from the broken sword, I quite like this figure. It's quite, but again, another one that's lots of stockings and suspenders and so on. Yeah, enough said on that. There was another one here as well. Where is it? Where's it gone? Yeah, it was this one. This one was another example of one that had wasn't quite as serious, but they're slaughter-based figures, and she was leaning really far forward. When I put her into the slotted base, one of the feet, because her left foot is literally, she's just attached to the slotter part with her on the by the ball of her left foot. That came apart quite rapidly, and then she came off altogether when I tried to kind of bend her back straight. So I had to kind of glue her to the base by building up the underneath the left foot with midi-putt and so on, and she seems pretty secure now. This is another thing I like about the Italianate kind of references, because some of them, I don't know whether it's on one that I've got yet to show you. They've got this, some of their arms and legs are covered with this padded kind of material. Almost reminds me of the Lanzknechts in the sort of Italianate wars. This is another one that I tried to give a kind of satin appearance to. Yeah, maybe I should have said as well that the Fae Marshall, who were the other group that Jeff did sculpt himself, they've got a Roman theme rather than a Venetian theme, and they look very different from these figures. They almost look as though they're not the same kind of species of creature, but they've got sort of more military style armour and so on, and obvious references to Roman helmets and so on that they're wearing. But I don't know if they sort of sit very comfortably with these. And another thing, there are no humans in the range yet, and Jeff has suggested using Dark Age figures, but can you really see? I mean, this is the sort of freedom that fantasy rules have in a way. It's not terribly disciplined, but I just can't see myself playing with my Anglo-Saxon figures that I've got for Saga alongside these. It just wouldn't look right to my eye. But as I say, these figures, I really do like them in terms of they do fit in more to my own impression of what fairies should look like. Especially this one, who hasn't got any weaponry at all. It's just that they are meant to be kind of the rules are meant to be rooted in ancient folklore, and fairies, belonging to a court with a court jester and a king and queen, Titania and Oberon and so on. That kind of conception of fairies didn't really exist before the Renaissance. It comes in with Midsummer Night's Dream and Shakespeare and so on, and it's more when society became more urban, and it was used to sort of parallel courtly kind of politics and so on. So a group like this wouldn't have existed in Anglo-Saxon kind of mindset. In those days, fairies were far more likely to be the sort of spirits of warriors who died in battle, or women who died in childbirth and so on, and children who had been lost through infant mortality and so on. But that's taking me into the realms of this other discussion I may have with you in the future. There's one final one here. Back to a more kind of pirate basis, but you can see the large swords require large scabbards, so they tend to be a little bit kind of intrusive on a figure that's meant to be quite fair and delicate and so on. And this one's wearing something akin to a kind of Scottish plaid, so I painted it with a kind of vague reference to sort of tartan fashion. But anyway, that's them. Quite happy with the way they turned out, and they were fun to paint. I'd be interested to see how how they do fit into a game. Once the lockdown is over, I think Jeff Solomon Sims may be going to sort of showcase the rules again and play a game with an actual opponent. So he might put up some kind of backret on his channel. I don't know. Leave you with a last look at some of my favourite figures there, and thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.